Ladies and gentlemen, we are so back. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Zach Stoffer. I'm your host. This is the It's So Over podcast. And today I got a solo episode for y'all. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and to be honest, I'm really excited. I have all my little notes here of the things I want to talk about and the points that I kind of have wanted to make and say. So, this has been fun. I think I just want to say first of all that I kind of said this before, but I'm just so excited to be doing this consistently now. I have a full-time editor. I'm really trying to lock in on just being consistent and learning as I go. I think something that definitely held me back before was I just kept getting frustrated and it kept just being so much. And now that I have Tanner being my editor and he does, I feel, a good job with making sure that these videos are watchable, even though I really do try to, I really do make it difficult for him. But he edits them, he makes some clips for me as well, and it just helps this all so much because I can get people on here and I can record as many episodes as I want, but if I don't advertise this or make this the right quality, well, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to become anything. But I guess with this episode today, I wanted to give like a little bit of an origin story, I guess. I feel like I've very clearly outlined why I want to get into podcasting, what I hope to do with it, but I've alluded to many times how there's so many moving parts and it's such a crazy story for me to even be where I am today, to want to be podcasting and to have any of this stuff. So, I guess I'll just start with. Oh man, I don't know where to start. I have it all in my notes, but it's so much. I think as I've said before, I know where I'll start. I've always wanted to help people. I think that's something that has just been a big part of me. It's been a big part of my life. I've always had this desire to do my best to help others if given the opportunity. I've had a lot of unfortunate things happen in my life. I've been through a lot of hard things, and a lot of those things I had to go through and figure out on my own. And I think because of that, I've kind of just developed this life philosophy where if I can help someone else go through something not alone like I was, then I'd be over the moon to help other people. I think I kind of realized I loved helping others when I was in high school. There would be small little service things that I could do, and every now and then. And let me tell you, I don't think I was too wise in high school. I was mostly crazy, but every now and then when someone would come to me for advice, I felt like I would give them some solid advice. And I think this kind of followed me into college, where I had probably one of the more formative experiences of my life over a certain period of time. I wrote a piece about this, which will be in my book whenever that gets published. It's a whole tangent for another time. But I want to say this all really began when I was on my mission. And I hate to be that guy. Oh, my mission taught me this. But there was one lesson that I really started to learn on my mission that kind of snowballed into where I am today. I struggled a lot on my mission. For those of you who don't know me, at least back then, and for those of you who haven't met me and I've gotten the opportunity to tell the story, I came home early from my mission. I served for a couple transfers, and I came home. I decided to come home, I think is a part that I want to emphasize. I went out without a testimony, and when I was out there, I really struggled because I was preaching about, finding peace, love, um, joy, all these things within a faith that I didn't even know if I totally believed in. And so naturally, as I'm over here preaching about all these things to people, I was struggling. I felt like a complete charlatan. I felt like a fraud and all of these things. And I would meet with my mission president, and this conversation that I had with him one time, at the time, did not really sit well with me, but as time has gone on, I realized the wisdom in what he was trying to tell me and trying to point out to me. But he met with me and he was asking me why I was struggling, and I kind of just told him, I just was really depressed and I didn't feel myself and all this other stuff. And he asked me why I came out on a mission. And when he asked me that, I told him I came out because I wanted to help other people. And there was a testimonial of someone that I gave of how blessed they felt about being the person to help all of these people. And when I told him that, he kind of chuckled at me and he's like, "So you're not out here because you believe, you're out here because you're selfish and you want that glory and you want to feel good about yourself for helping other people. And I was like, no, I don't think I'm selfish. And he kind of said it in a much better way than I'm wording. But the essence of the conversation, and one of the things that truly just sticks with me most to this day, is he told me that the world was bigger than myself, that the world did not revolve around me. And again, at the time, I didn't appreciate him saying that to me, because I don't think anybody wants to sit down with someone that, is really important to them and be told that they're a selfish kid. But in layman's terms, that's kind of what he told me. And as I've looked back at that, I think that was the first moment that I realized that, my struggles, my issues, what I wanted, me, wasn't all there was to this world. I think when we are 18, 19, when we just, get away from home for the first time, when we're in high school, I think a lot of us definitely struggle with having that self awareness, with understanding that everyone out here has problems, issues, goals, hopes, aspirations, struggles, trials, all of these things just like we do. One of my favorite words recently that I have discovered is the word sonder, and it's that everyone's life is just as deeply, intricately beautiful and difficult as your own. You're not the main character. Everyone's the main character in their own story. And I think that realization started there, but it was really cemented in my first couple of semesters of college. When I went to BYU, Idaho, and while I was there, I struggled a lot. I moved around a lot when I was in high school, middle school, and just growing up in general. And when I got to college and I was finally firmly in one place, I was really struggling with friends. I was really struggling with myself. There was a lot of things that internally I was just trying to figure out as well. And for those of you who have followed me along on this journey since my first semester of college, shout out you guys. But I lived at this apartment complex, and there was a fire pit there. The North Point fire pits, if you're familiar. And while I lived there, for some reason, just sitting next to a fire always felt so peaceful to me. And I was famously known for being at those fire pits more than I was my own bed. I would, whenever it was 10 p.m. or any time later after that, I would just go sit by the fires. I would have them on, and sometimes there'd be people there, sometimes I'd be by myself, but I would just sit there and I would just think and I would write and I would just process a lot of the things in my life. And something that happened to me more than a few times that really, I want to say, truly started me on this path. First of all, I went to college not knowing what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to go into, I think I wanted to be an athletic trainer because I love sports. Huge sports person. But obviously, going to BYU, I don't think there's an official athletic training program that I could have gone into. So I think I was going into generals in my first semester, but I keep giving you context as the story is going. Forgive me, this is just how I am as a storyteller. I have horrible ADHD. So I hope you're bearing with me. Solo episodes are difficult because it's just me talking to a camera. But anyways, I digress. um, so while I'm at these fire pits, more than a few times, I had these people just come sit across from me, come sit next to me. A couple times I would be there until like 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was in the middle of the apartment complex, and there was apartments with windows that were all facing the courtyard. And sometimes people would just see me sitting there by myself and come join me. Or people would just sit down with me because, you know, something about the fire pits just opened people up. And before I knew it, there were so many people that were just opening up to me about whatever struggle they were having in life, be it a relationship, be it what they were doing with their life, whatever it was. And somehow, some way, I always had some piece of wisdom to offer them. And, some people said I helped them. Maybe I was more of a bother than a help with others. But I'll never forget that feeling of sitting with someone right next to the fire pit and just having a conversation with them and it meaning not just so much to them, but so much to me. I feel like oftentimes when I was giving other people advice, I was also helping myself out, speaking some wisdom that I was not following in my own life. And I think from there, I was like, man, people always joked. There was like, oh, I was like, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And I was the walking TED Talk. That was my whole bit. I was My office hours were at the fire pits from midnight till 5 a.m. And I just sat there. And if anybody ever wanted to talk to me at the fire pits, that's where I'd be. And it got to a point where I took the key that controlled the fire pits. And so they were only on for at least a couple semesters when I wanted them to be. And that was my safe space. It was so cathartic to me. And it really planted the first seed, I want to say, in understanding, wow, I love helping people. And I have a gift for talking with people and being there for people. And so immediately I was like, man, I want to give TED Talks. I love doing this. This is such a passion for me. And that didn't pan out because I didn't formulate in my head that you don't just go to school to give a TED Talk. You don't do that for a career. Public speaking you can do, but that's different, right? So after a few reframes and figuring things out, I was like, you know what? I want to be a counselor. I want to be a therapist. So I chose psychology and I started down that path. And a few years into that, I kind of realized I am such an empath. And I don't think I could handle listening to some people's like trauma or horrible life experiences and compartmentalizing that and coming home and being okay. I feel like I would just worry or it would take too much out of me. And that was just me accepting my own limitations, my own faults, my own flaws, and not saying that nobody can do that. There are definitely people that can, there are definitely people that do. I have a therapist. Awesome. But after doing that for a few years, I had that epiphany and I'm like, okay, I dropped out of school. But my biggest problem was, what am I going to do? How do I, do what I want to do, which I have always felt my life's purpose is to help other people. I feel like I've been given a story and experiences that have given me the ability to connect with others in a way that's really meaningful. I've always been an open book as well. I love being vulnerable, just like these little episodes and other episodes as well where I talk about personal things. I feel like that's my gift. And so I came to this point and I'm like, okay, how do I make this into something? And I had no clue. And simultaneously, I was still trying to date and find my person and all this stuff. And I decided to move to Utah. And when I moved to Utah, I had a friend. And I don't think I credit her enough because she planted the seed that now led us to where we are today. But I just had a friend. I think it was literally randomly. No, I remember what it is now. See, I don't even have this all fully mapped out. I'm just kind of remembering things as we go. But sometimes when something crazy in my life happens, I would post me venting about it on a Snapchat private story, just like totally comedically, but just talking about whatever crazy situation just happened. And I had one of my friends, her name is Jordan. Shout out Jordan. She also made the logo and everything for this podcast. So shout out Jordan again. She's awesome. But she slid up and she was like, "You should totally start a podcast. I would absolutely listen." And I was like, "Huh, this sounds like an interesting idea." And I'm pondering about this and I'm thinking about it. And I ended up meeting this guy and he and I aren't exactly in each other's lives anymore, so I won't name him, but uh, I met this guy and he and I clicked and we became like best friends for a little while. And we would always have these like brainstorm sessions and ideas and talk about how we didn't want to work 9 to 5s and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I want to start a podcast. I'm thinking about that. And he goes, dude, I've always wanted to do a podcast. Apparently his dad had like done podcasting or something like that before. And so we then started to kind of lay the groundwork that would eventually become this podcast. We brainstormed ideas. I came up with the It's So Over podcast, and we were like, okay, sick. This is awesome. We now have a podcast name. We have an idea. We were trying to figure out what our whole thing would be. It was just going to be him and I, and we would just probably just talk about random things, tell stories, and that was the initial idea. And as time went on, as I said, we kind of had some things happen and we went our separate ways. And when this happened, no. I'm skipping far ahead. Before this happened, while we were trying to figure out to start a podcast or not, this actually segues into the next little bit of what I want to say. I matched with this girl on Hinge, as all amazing stories go. And I'm out with this girl. I can't even remember what we were doing, but I was in her apartment with her, just talking with her. And she was like, "What are you doing with your life?" And I'm like, "Oh, like I'm just working right now. I'm not in school. I'm thinking of starting a podcast, but I, haven't really moved forward with any of that." And this girl goes, "I have a podcast microphone just sitting in my closet. You should have it." And she gave it to me. I have since given that microphone away, otherwise I would totally show it. But I just felt like that was the clearest sign ever that I was like, okay, I should start a podcast. I was just given a mic. This is it. Fast forward now, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a podcast. This is a good idea. This feels good. I've had a lot of good things happen. My friend and I had it all mapped out. We had a canon event happen, went our separate ways. And at this point, I was by myself and I sat there and I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. Everything that we had planned was going to be us two together being co hosts, running the podcast together. And I kind of sat there by myself and I was like, I don't even know how to do any of this. Like, I can get people on, I can talk to people, I can have fun stories, I can be myself. But whenever it came to any of the technical stuff, I was like, I got no idea what to do. I just have one mic and a lot of hopes to start a podcast, but I never quite got around to it. And so then I started praying and I was like, all right, God, I feel like you have put me on a path to start this podcast. And if that's the case, then help me, you know, with the next steps because I'm lost. I don't know what to do now. Now that I don't have this guy that was going to do it with me, it's just like, it feels like he was dead in the water. And once again, shout out dating apps. I have a blazingly hot take that I'm going to make after this. But I once again matched with a girl on Hinge. And we were supposed to go to, if you live in Provo and you're familiar, there are these outdoor movie nights where they have like this big inflatable, like screen, not screen, it's not a screen. It's this big inflatable thing that they project a movie onto and people kind of gather around in a park and it's really cool. I had a girl that told me I should pull up and it was like a scheduled date and everything like that. I pull up to this date and I text her, I'm like, I'm here. Like 10 minutes go by. I give her a call. Goes to voicemail. I shoot her a text and be like, hey, like all good? Her do not disturb goes on. And so I was like, ooh, I'm getting ghosted. Okay. But I had pulled up to this thing. I had waited around and I was like, you know what? I gotta go check it out. I had this feeling like I just needed to go check it out. So I get out of my car. I start walking over and I had parked way far away. I parked out in like Mexico, dude. It was jam packed. But as I'm walking, I pass this group of people and I got this feeling and it was like, go talk to them. And I'm like, no, I do not want to go talk to them. I just got stood up on my date and I'm showing up to this by myself like a total loser. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go walk, check it out, see if I see anybody I know, and then walk back. So I walk past them and I keep going and the feeling comes back. Stop what you're doing. Wait for them to catch up to you. Talk to them. And at this point, I've lived enough of a crazy life to understand that when I'm having thoughts like that and they're reoccurring and very much like not oppressive or intrusive, because I don't think it was an intrusive thought. It was the spirit. I want to clarify. But I just kind of was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. What harm can come from it? So I got on my phone. I was acting all lost, and they walked up to me, and I go, hey, he's like, hey. And they're like, hey, like, are you guys going to the movie night thing? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, like, dude, Sam, have you ever done this before? They're like, no, this is our first time. I'm like, dude, sick. And I just decided to be honest. And I was like, would it be okay if I low-key, like, kicked it with you guys? I was supposed to meet up with a girl from Hinge, and she's ghosting me right now. And we all laughed at it. They were like, dude, heck yeah, you could join us. And so I'm talking with all of them. They bring me over to a bigger group of friends, and we all sit down, and they're kind of just asking me the basic get-to-know-you questions, like, oh, where are you from? What are you doing? And I get on the whole tangent of like, oh, like I'm not in school. I kind of just dropped out. I'm thinking of starting a podcast and all this other stuff. And one of the girls in the group stops and she's like, stop right there. I have a friend who runs a podcast. I'm going to connect you to right now. And she brings me over to her friend and we just start talking. And it was genuinely one of like the most insanely coincidental experiences in my life. And she then sits me down and goes, okay, this is my podcast. This is how I run it. This is where I record. She then goes, these are the mics you need to get. This is the, way you should do it. This is what I do. And she recommends everything for me to buy. She basically gives me all of the information that I was lacking to actually start the podcast. And from there, I just was sitting there like, I have to start this podcast now. That was around, I want to say, July last year. So a year ago almost. And I think for those of you who have been kind of following along, or maybe not, around last year is when I started to try and post and record, and it just wasn't right. So basically from last year until now, I have all of this equipment, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I have such a passion to do this. I have such a great idea. I feel like I could, run a successful podcast, but it's like, okay, what am I going to talk about? Why would people watch my podcast? What is the point of all of this, right? And that's when the lesson from my mission came back to me. I'm not some Joe Rogan. I'm not somebody who has deeply profound wisdom or insights. I'm just a guy who loves to talk and is overly vulnerable. Has had some crazy life experiences that I share from time to time. I'm nobody special. There's really no reason that I can truly convince you why you should continue to watch my podcast. But it's in that realization that I was like, you know what? I do have a crazy story though. I do have fun things to say. I do have a lot that I've overcome, that I've struggled with, and that I want other people to know they can also overcome. But I'm not alone in that. And that's when the idea fully came to me to have other people on, to interview them, to highlight and showcase other people's accomplishments, their struggles, who they are, all in the attempt to help people feel less alone, to help other people understand it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to feel emotions, it's okay to struggle, it's human. That's how it all is for all of us, and that in all of these things, not only are you not alone, but you can overcome it. I've had so many people DM me or reach out to me and be like, oh, I had no idea that someone else perfectly understood or had been through something like I had. I think we all feel so much more alone than we actually are. And it's in doing all this and having these experiences, it all came together for me to be like, you know what? This is the It's So Over podcast. And I've just loved every single minute of doing this. But now that you know how I got here, there's something that I have to say that I mentioned a couple times throughout this story, and this might be such a blazingly hot take. All right, so I'm gonna really try to hold some space for what I'm about to say. My hot take is I think that Hinge and other dating apps have been some of the greatest blessings of my entire life. And I say that as a 25, soon to be 26, very single guy who lives in Utah. I know. That is a crazy take indeed. But if you were listening to this story, two big opportunities came from me matching with somebody from Hinge, of all places. And sorry to out this Joe, but Jordan, who even got me the idea, who told me I should start a podcast, met her off of a dating app. I think for this little second part of the podcast, I want to talk about dating apps. I think they are some of the best things ever. Now, I understand any outrage, any complaints, this guy, I'm just going to turn this off. He's speaking nonsense now, but you got to hear me out. I think dating apps are all about your intention. I think they are absolutely, in a way, for dating. Obviously, it's in the name. I think with today's dating climate, though, while it is possible to meet someone off of a dating app, get married to them, and have a happy, healthy relationship, and blah, 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 I just don't think that's overly realistic. I have a big friends to lovers approach from dating apps. I've made so many friends, guys. Like, it's not even funny the connections that I've been able to make, the doors that have been opened to me by a girl that I've met off of a dating app. For example, when I was at BYU, Idaho, I had the most amazing group of friends, my second, third, and semester and beyond. And I met all of those guys because I had matched with a girl on a dating app, and she was like, hey, I'm having a bunch of people over, you should come over. And I met these guys who became, I would hope to be lifelong friends. The whole Girl giving me the idea to start a podcast, met her on a dating app. The girl who gave me my first ever mic, met her off of Hinge. The girl who put me in the very place that got me started with buying the actual stuff and following through with starting a podcast, met her from Hinge. Look, I'm going to say it right now. I am a proud Hinge Premium buyer. I just don't think that it's something I'll ever regret. I think the opportunities and the experiences that I've had and the friendships I've made, you can't put a price on them. I'll happily pay whatever the dollar amount is if it gives me more opportunities to meet people. And heaven forbid, maybe I find my wife. Whoa, what a crazy concept from a dating app. But truly, I think dating apps, it's really about your perspective. If you go into dating apps like, I need to find my person and I need to, go on one date with someone and figure out after one day of knowing them if they are the person for me and if I should go out with them again. And it's not realistic. I also think dating apps definitely have the issue from the perspective of, I'm looking for something serious from this, that everyone thinks that they can find better. It's FOBO, fear of a better option. So many people just keep swiping at, even after going on probably the best date that they'll go on in their life. People will be like, no, I could probably find better. I could find a guy that's actually 6'4" and jacked and maybe has thousands of followers on his own podcast or does sales and is rich, whatever it is. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And for guys, it's the same thing. I can find a girl that's more attractive. I can find a girl that's more funny. But the point being, when you have a certain perspective or intention with dating apps, where my philosophy is I'm there to meet people. I love going on dates. I'm trying not to be a serial dater, but I love meeting people because I've made some amazing friendships from dating apps. Like, I wouldn't have any of my logos. I wouldn't be where I am right now, ultimately, if it weren't for Hinge or other dating apps, which sounds so crazy to me. And I promise this isn't a paid advertisement. But I truly do mean it, that dating apps can be used for good if you have the right intentions and you're not trying to just I don't know, go crazy and play a bunch of people. But I think that's just the whole problem with dating as a whole that I can probably talk on with someone else in another podcast episode. But shout out dating apps, shout out Hinge. I truly would not be where I am today if it weren't for them. I think it's so crazy. And I also think too that, it's not impossible to meet someone that you can date off of a dating app. And like I said, I'm a proud Hinge Premium buyer. If you were to tell me right now, all right, let's be crazy for a second. If you pay $50, there's a chance within the next month you go out with a girl that is your wife as a guy. You're going to say that you would pay more than $50 for that chance, would you not? So if paying for a premium membership on a dating app opens more doors for you, why would you not do that? That's my take. Sorry if I'm sounding like a total Hinge advertisement. Look, I've had so many good things happen in my life. I think it's also a big deal to me because I'm not in school. I don't have many organic opportunities to be meeting people. Like, I will not hit on a girl at the gym. I refuse to be that guy. I think I've talked to maybe 2 or 3 girls from the gym. One, it either never goes well, they have a boyfriend, or it's just like I'm just so inept at talking to women, like cold approaching in the gym, that it just doesn't go well. I don't know. I think if you're in school, talk to people, be social. I think you wouldn't need to do things as I do them. But if you're me and you're not in school and all you do is work and podcast and try to hang out with friends, it's really hard to find actual dating opportunities. So I don't know. I think dating apps are awesome. While I do hate the games and I'm really vibing with a girl and she just unmatched me because she saw my Instagram and saw that I write poetry and run a podcast and was icked out of her mind, whatever it is. I think it's dating apps can be so good, and I would highly recommend them if you are a single adult. Keywords. But I think that's all I got today. I kind of just want to end this. I like to end this all with a summary or kind of just a little inspirational message, but I guess I just kind of tell this story because I like to think that there's a purpose in all things. I've said this in many of my episodes, but it's so cool to look back at the small things that eventually turned into this. Now, there's so many life experiences that I've glazed over. There's so many specific details I could have gone into, but ultimately, I think there's many things in all of our lives that kind of shape us onto a certain path, and it's all about taking the risk sometimes. Like, I think I have, as of this current moment, I think I have like 100 followers on Instagram, 30 followers on TikTok, 30 subscribers on YouTube, and like 60 uh, listeners on Spotify. By all accounts and means, I'm not succeeding, but I'm taking the risk and I'm happy to do it. I love doing this. I don't, I would love for it to become something big. I don't need it to though. I don't like, I'm just going to do my best, and I'm going to hope that just as I've found my way here, that this episode and all of the things that I do will find their way to the right people. I think that if you really take a look at your life and you really say, I want to go do something, or, just take the chance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think it's so hard to figure out what we want to do in this life. And I'd so much rather struggle with something like this than try to bash my head against a brick wall figuring out school and a major and other things. But that's neither here nor there. This has been my story. This has been my hot takes. This is my solo episode. I hope y'all have enjoyed. I hope it's been good. I hope there's been some fun little takeaway or uh, something good that I said throughout here that resonated with someone. But as always, I'm so grateful that y'all were here. Thank you so much for listening. I'm still going to have an upload this upcoming Friday. This is just a little bonus because I've wanted to do this episode for a while, and I feel like doing a little double upload this week just to bless y'all a little bit. But once again, thank you for being here. This is the It's Over podcast. This episode is so very over, but we will be so very back. I'm Zach Stoffer, your host. Thank you so much again. I'll catch y'all this upcoming Friday.